In the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan, where the margin between life and death is measured in millimeters, Lieutenant Sarah Ghost Martinez was about to prove that sometimes the impossible is just another word for improbable. When her commanding officer declared her mission target impossible, 3 high-value enemy generals positioned over 2 miles away in separate locations, she didn't argue. She simply adjusted her scope, controlled her breathing, and prepared to rewrite the rules of modern warfare. What happened next in those crucial 17 minutes would not only save the lives of an entire platoon trapped behind enemy lines, but would also shatter every preconception about precision, patience, and the deadly art of long-range elimination. This is the true story of how one woman's extraordinary skill transformed a suicide mission into a legendary victory, proving that in the world of elite special operations, the word impossible is often just the starting line for greatness. The enemy thought they were untouchable. The SEAL commander thought the shot couldn't be made. Sarah Martinez thought differently. And, in the space between heartbeats, she was about to prove them all wrong. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of Kunar Province, Afghanistan, as Lieutenant Sarah Martinez adjusted her position on the ridge overlooking the valley below. The air was thin at this altitude, nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, and each breath required conscious effort. She had been in position for 3 hours, studying the enemy compound through her high-powered scope, memorizing every detail of the fortified position that housed 3 of the most wanted Taliban commanders in the region. Sarah's teammates called her Ghost for good reason. At 28 years old, she had earned her place among the Navy's most elite marksmen through a combination of natural talent, relentless training, and an almost supernatural ability to disappear into any environment. Her slight frame, standing just 5 feet 4 inches tall, belied the incredible strength and steady nerves that made her one of the deadliest snipers in the United States military. The mission briefing had been clear but daunting. Intelligence reports indicated that Generals Mahmoud al-Hakim, Rashid Nazir, and Omar Basim were meeting at the fortified compound in the valley below. These 3 men were responsible for coordinating attacks that had killed dozens of American and Allied forces over the past 2 years. They rarely traveled together, making this gathering a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to eliminate a significant portion of the Taliban's leadership structure in a single operation. Commander James Hawk Peterson had made his opinion clear during the mission planning session the previous evening. "Martinez, I respect your skills, but this target package is beyond the scope of what's tactically feasible," he had said, pointing to the satellite imagery spread across the briefing table. 3 separate buildings, distances ranging from 2,100 to 2,400 meters, with limited windows of opportunity. Even if you could make the first shot, the other targets would disappear the moment the first round impacts. Sarah had listened respectfully to her commanding officer's assessment, understanding his concerns while silently calculating angles, wind patterns, and timing sequences in her mind. The compound consisted of 3 main structures arranged in a triangle formation across the valley floor. The intelligence suggested that each general would be in a different building during their scheduled morning meeting, reviewing operational plans before gathering together later in the day. The tactical challenges were indeed formidable. At distances exceeding 2 miles, even the most advanced sniper rifles faced significant ballistic limitations. Environmental factors like wind speed, atmospheric pressure, temperature gradients, and the Coriolis effect from the Earth's rotation all became critical variables that could send a bullet several feet off target. Add to that the need for perfect timing across 3 separate shots, and the mission appeared to border on the impossible. But Sarah had spent years preparing for moments exactly like this. Her journey to becoming one of the military's premier snipers had begun in the hills of rural Montana, where her grandfather had taught her to hunt from the age of 12. James Martinez had been a Marine sniper in Vietnam, and he recognized something special in his granddaughter's natural shooting ability and patience. While other children played video games, Sarah spent hours perfecting her breathing techniques and learning to read environmental conditions. Her path to the Navy SEALs had been unconventional. After graduating from Montana State University with a degree in physics, she had initially planned to pursue graduate studies in ballistics engineering. However, the events of September 11 had changed her priorities, leading her to enlist with the goal of applying her technical knowledge and natural marksmanship skills in service to her country. The selection process for SEAL training had been grueling, both physically and mentally. As one of only a handful of women to attempt the program during the early years of integrated training, Sarah faced additional scrutiny and skepticism from instructors and fellow candidates. She had proven her worth through performance rather than words, consistently scoring at the top of her class in marksmanship while meeting every physical and mental challenge thrown her way. Her specialized training in long-range precision shooting had taken place at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, where she learned to use the Baradam 107A 1.50 caliber rifle system. The massive weapon, weighing nearly 30 pounds when fully equipped with optics and bipod, was capable of engaging targets at distances exceeding 2 miles under ideal conditions. Sarah had mastered not just the technical aspects of the weapon system, but had developed an intuitive understanding of the complex physics involved in extreme long-range shooting. Now, positioned on the ridge with her Barrett rifle system carefully concealed among the rocky outcroppings, Sarah began her methodical preparation routine. She activated her handheld weather station, recording wind speed and direction at multiple altitudes, atmospheric pressure, temperature, and humidity levels. Her spotting scope, a high-magnification Leupold Mark V HD, provided detailed observation of the target area, while her primary weapon scope, a Nightforce 8 SR, offered the precise magnification needed for the actual shots. The intelligence package had provided detailed floor plans of the 3 buildings, along with photographs of each target. General Al-Hakim, the senior commander, was expected to be in the northern building reviewing supply route maps. General Nazir, responsible for recruiting and training, would likely be in the eastern structure examining personnel files. General Basim, who coordinated weapons smuggling operations, was anticipated to be in the southern building reviewing shipment schedules. Sarah's spotting partner for this mission was Petty Officer First Class Miguel Santos, a veteran observer who had worked with her on 6 previous operations. Santos had positioned himself 12 feet to her left with his own observation equipment, providing redundant target identification and environmental monitoring. Their partnership had been forged through months of training and combat operations, developing the kind of wordless communication essential for successful sniper teams. "Ghost, I've got movement in the northern building," Santos whispered into his headset. "Single individual, matches the profile for target Alpha." Sarah shifted her primary scope to the northern building, scanning the windows methodically. Through the second-floor window, she could see a figure in traditional Afghan clothing examining what appeared to be maps spread across a wooden table. The distance reading on her rangefinder showed 2,187 meters. At this range, the bullet would take approximately 3 seconds to reach the target, requiring her to account for any movement during the flight time. "Confirmed visual on target Alpha," Sarah replied quietly. Distance 2,187 meters, wind reading shows 8 miles per hour from the southwest, gusting to 12. She began inputting the environmental data into her ballistic calculator, a small electronic device that computed the precise adjustments needed for her scope settings. The calculations took into account the specific ammunition she was using, Federal Premium 750 grain AMAX rounds, which had been carefully selected for their superior ballistic coefficient and consistency at extreme ranges. As she worked through her calculations, Sarah reflected on the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. This mission represented more than just eliminating 3 high-value targets. Intelligence indicated that these commanders were planning a major offensive against Allied supply convoys scheduled to begin within the next 72 hours. Hundreds of American and Afghan government forces could be killed or wounded if these operations proceeded as planned. The morning light gradually improved, providing better visibility of the target area. Sarah could now clearly observe activity in all 3 buildings through her scope. The challenge would be timing the shots to eliminate all 3 targets before any could escape or alert others to the threat. She estimated having a window of perhaps 15 to 20 minutes when all 3 generals would be simultaneously visible and stationary enough for precise shots. "Santos, I need continuous updates on all 3 targets," Sarah instructed her spotter. "Target prioritization remains Alpha, Charlie, then Bravo based on their positions and likely reaction times." The plan called for engaging the northern target first, followed immediately by the southern target, and concluding with the eastern target. This sequence was designed to minimize the time available for the surviving targets to react and seek cover after the first shot alerted them to the attack. Sarah made minute adjustments to her rifle position, ensuring that the bipod legs were firmly planted and that her body position would allow for rapid transitions between targets. The Barrett semi-automatic action would enable quick follow-up shots, but the precision required meant that each round had to be carefully aimed despite the time pressure. Her breathing settled into the slow, controlled rhythm that she had perfected through thousands of hours of practice. In the sniper's world, the moment between heartbeats represented the optimal firing window, when natural body movement reached its minimum point. At distances exceeding 2 miles, even the slight tremor from a heartbeat could cause a miss. The radio crackled with an update from the forward observation team positioned closer to the target area. "Overwatch, this is Eagle Eye. All 3 packages are now in position and appear settled for an extended stay. You are cleared to engage when ready. Commander Peterson's voice came through her earpiece moments later. Ghost, I'm going to say this one more time. If you don't have a clear shot on the first target, abort the mission. We can't afford to alert them to our presence if we can't guarantee elimination of all 3. Sarah keyed her radio briefly. Understood, Hawk. Beginning final preparations now. She closed her eyes for 30 seconds, running through the entire shooting sequence in her mind. The first shot would be the most critical, both for accuracy and for setting the timing for the entire engagement. Once that bullet left the barrel, she would have perhaps 12 seconds to identify, aim, and engage the second target before the sound of the first impact reached the compound and alerted the remaining targets. When she opened her eyes again, Sarah Martinez was no longer simply a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy. She had transformed into Ghost, the precision instrument that her years of training and natural ability had created. The weight of the Barrett rifle felt natural in her hands, an extension of her will and determination. The mountains of Afghanistan stretched out before her, beautiful and deadly in the morning light. The impossible shot was about to become possible. The silence stretched across the mountain ridge like a taut wire, broken only by the whisper of wind through the rocky terrain. Sarah's scope revealed increasing activity within the compound as the morning progressed. Through the crystal-clear optics of her Nightforce scope, she could observe the subtle movements that would determine the success or failure of her mission. General Al-Hakim had settled into a routine at the northern building, periodically moving between the window and the map table. His pattern was becoming predictable, spending approximately 2 minutes at the table before returning to the window for 30 seconds to survey the surrounding terrain. Sarah noted that he favored his right leg, likely the result of an old war injury, which caused a slight delay in his movements that could work to her advantage. Santos maintained his continuous observation of all 3 buildings, providing real-time updates on target positions and movements. Target Bravo is now visible in the eastern building, he whispered. Appears to be reviewing documents at a desk positioned against the far wall. Sarah shifted her attention to the eastern building where General Nazir had taken position. The distance measurement showed 2,243 meters, slightly farther than the northern target but within the effective range of her weapon system. Nazir appeared younger and more energetic than Al-Hakim, moving frequently around the room as he reviewed what appeared to be personnel files and photographs. The southern building housed the third target, General Basim, who remained partially concealed behind a support beam that limited clear shots. This target presented the greatest challenge due to his positioning and the 2,401-meter distance, pushing the absolute limits of her equipment's capabilities. Sarah made mental notes about the building's construction, identifying potential weak points in the structure that might provide better shooting opportunities as the morning progressed. The ballistic calculations for the 3 targets required different adjustments despite the relatively similar distances. Each building sat at a slightly different elevation, creating variations in the shooting angles that affected bullet trajectory. The northern building was positioned 15 feet lower than the eastern structure, while the southern building sat on a small rise that elevated at 8 feet above the eastern position. Sarah's weather monitoring equipment indicated that atmospheric conditions remained stable, with wind speeds holding steady between 8 and 10 miles per hour from the southwest. However, she noticed a pattern in the wind gusts that occurred every 4 to 5 minutes, increasing speed to 12 or 13 miles per hour for approximately 90 seconds before returning to the baseline conditions. These wind patterns would be critical for timing her shots. At distances exceeding 2 miles, even a moderate wind could deflect a bullet by several feet from its intended point of impact. Sarah had learned through experience that patience often made the difference between mission success and failure. Waiting for optimal conditions could mean the difference between eliminating high-value targets and merely alerting them to the threat. Commander Peterson's voice crackled through her earpiece with an update from the command post. Ghost, intelligence indicates the targets are scheduled to meet together in the central courtyard at 1,100 hours for a group photograph with local commanders. If you can't engage before then, we may have an opportunity for a different type of engagement. Sarah checked her chronometer, noting that she had approximately 90 minutes before the targets would potentially gather in a single location. While a group shot might seem easier, the presence of additional personnel would complicate the engagement and potentially result in civilian casualties. Her current plan remained the optimal approach for ensuring precise elimination of only the intended targets. The morning sun had climbed higher, improving visibility but also creating thermal effects that could influence bullet trajectory. As air temperatures rose, convection currents began forming in the valley between her position and the target buildings. These invisible columns of rising air could deflect a bullet unpredictably, requiring careful timing to avoid the most turbulent periods. Sarah activated her thermal imaging system, a sophisticated device that revealed temperature variations across the target area. The thermal signature showed distinct heat columns rising from sun-warmed surfaces in the valley, confirming her visual assessment of the atmospheric conditions. She identified several thermal lanes between her position and the targets where convection effects appeared minimal. "Santos, I'm seeing thermal activity increasing in sectors 2 and 4, Sarah reported to her spotter. "Recommend we time our engagement during the next period of minimal thermal disruption." Her spotter confirmed the observation through his own thermal imaging equipment. "Concur, Ghost. Thermal effects appear cyclic with approximately 12-minute intervals of reduced activity." The tactical situation required balancing multiple factors simultaneously. Environmental conditions, target movement patterns, ammunition limitations, and time constraints all influenced the optimal moment for engagement. Sarah had brought 12 rounds of match-grade ammunition for this mission, understanding that resupply would be impossible at this remote location. Each round represented hours of careful preparation by military ammunition specialists who had hand-selected components for maximum accuracy and consistency. The Federal Premium 750-grain AMAX bullets had been individually measured and weighed to ensure uniform ballistic performance. The propellant charges had been precisely calculated for the specific atmospheric conditions expected at the target altitude. Sarah's rifle had been zeroed at 100 meters during the pre-mission preparation, then verified at longer distances using a mobile ballistic range set up specifically for this operation. Every component of her weapon system, from the barrel rifling to the scope mounting hardware, had been inspected and tested to ensure optimal performance when lives depended on absolute precision. The psychological aspects of long-range precision shooting demanded as much attention as the technical elements. Maintaining focus and emotional control over extended periods while under combat stress required mental discipline that few individuals possessed. Sarah had developed meditation techniques that allowed her to remain calm and focused despite the enormous pressure of her responsibilities. She visualized each shot in detail, from the moment her finger applied pressure to the trigger through the bullet's 3-second flight time to its impact with the intended target. This mental rehearsal process helped ensure that her physical execution would match her tactical plan when the moment came to engage. Activity in the compound began increasing as mid-morning approached. Additional personnel could be observed moving between buildings, creating potential complications for the planned engagement. Sarah noted the positions and movement patterns of these individuals, ensuring that her shots would not endanger anyone other than the intended targets. General Al-Hakim returned to his position at the northern building's window, following his established pattern. Through her scope, Sarah could see him clearly examining documents while occasionally glancing toward the valley entrance. His positioning provided an excellent shot opportunity, with no intervening personnel or obstacles that might deflect her bullet. "Target Alpha is in optimal position," Santos reported. "Clear shot, no obstructions, target appears stationary." Sarah began her final pre-engagement preparations, checking her scope settings and confirming her ballistic calculations one final time. The distance to the northern target remained 2,187 meters, with current wind conditions requiring a 0.8 mil adjustment to the right to compensate for deflection. The elevation setting had been calculated to account for the bullet's trajectory arc over the extended distance. Her breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that preceded every precision shot. The Barrett rifle felt perfectly balanced in her hands, its substantial weight providing the stability necessary for extreme long-range engagement. Sarah's finger found the trigger's first stage, applying just enough pressure to take up the mechanical slack without initiating firing sequence. The thermal imaging indicated a brief lull in convection activity across the valley. Wind speeds had stabilized at 9 miles per hour with minimal gusting. Target Alpha remained stationary at the window, presenting a clear profile for engagement. All conditions aligned for the optimal shooting opportunity. "All stations, this is Ghost," Sarah whispered into her radio. "Commencing engagement in 30 seconds. Commander Peterson's response came immediately. "Ghost, you are cleared hot. All stations maintain radio silence until engagement complete." Sarah made one final adjustment to her scope, ensuring perfect alignment with her calculated point of aim. The crosshairs settled on a specific point that would account for bullet drop, wind deflection, and target movement over the 3-second flight time. Her heart rate slowed to its minimum level as her autonomic nervous system responded to years of conditioning. 25 meters to her left, a small avalanche of loose rocks tumbled down the mountainside, the sound echoing across the valley. Sarah remained motionless, her concentration unbroken by the distraction. In her world, nothing existed except the target, the crosshairs, and the precise moment when her finger would complete its rearward pressure on the trigger. General Al-Hakim shifted slightly in the window, turning to face more directly toward her position. The change in angle actually improved the shot opportunity, presenting a larger target profile while maintaining the same point of aim. Sarah noted the movement without adjusting her rifle position, understanding that the calculated impact point would remain valid. The wind gauge indicated a momentary decrease to 7 miles per hour, slightly improving conditions from her original calculations. Sarah made a microscopic adjustment to her scope, reducing the windage correction by 0.1 mil to account for the changed conditions. At extreme ranges, such minor modifications could mean the difference between success and failure. Her finger began applying pressure to the trigger's second stage, feeling the mechanical resistance that preceded the weapon's firing sequence. The Barrett's trigger had been professionally tuned to break cleanly at exactly 3.5 pounds of pressure, providing the crisp release essential for precision shooting. Sarah had practiced with this specific rifle hundreds of times, developing perfect familiarity with its trigger characteristics. The moment had arrived. Years of training, months of preparation, and hours of patience converged into a single instant of perfect execution. Sarah Martinez took one final breath, released half of it, and prepared to prove that the impossible was merely another word for improbable. The trigger break was perfect, as clean and precise as Sarah had executed thousands of times in training. The Barrett rifle's massive frame absorbed most of the recoil energy, but the distinctive crack of the .50 caliber round echoed across the mountain valley like thunder. Through her scope, Sarah watched the muzzle flash dissipate as she immediately began tracking toward her second target, knowing she had exactly 3 seconds before the bullet would impact the northern building. The bullet's supersonic flight created a barely visible vapor trail in the crisp mountain air, a phenomenon that experienced spotters could sometimes observe under perfect atmospheric conditions. Santos tracked the projectile's path through his spotting scope while simultaneously shifting his attention to monitor the reaction of the other targets once the first impact occurred. Sarah's muscle memory took over as she smoothly transitioned her rifle toward the southern building where General Basim remained partially concealed behind the structural beam. The distance to this target measured 2,401 meters, requiring different scope settings and windage adjustments than the first shot. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, making the necessary corrections while her eyes remained focused on the target area. At exactly 3 seconds after her trigger pull, the first bullet struck General Al-Hakim with devastating precision. The 750-grain projectile, traveling at nearly 2,800 feet per second despite the extreme range, eliminated the target instantly. Through her scope, Sarah observed the impact and immediately confirmed the successful engagement before shifting her complete attention to the second target. Target Alpha down, Santos reported quietly into his radio. Ghost is transitioning to target Charlie. The sound of the distant gunshot would take several additional seconds to travel across the valley to alert the remaining targets. Sarah used this acoustic delay to her advantage, settling her crosshairs on General Basim's partially exposed position in the southern building. The target appeared to be moving toward the window, perhaps responding to some disturbance, providing a better shooting angle than she had anticipated. Her ballistic calculator had already computed the necessary adjustments for the southern target. The increased distance required an additional 0.3 mils of elevation correction, while the wind angle at this target demanded 1.1 mils of right windage to compensate for deflection. Sarah's scope adjustments were smooth and precise, completed in less than 8 seconds from her first shot. The thermal imaging revealed that convection patterns had shifted slightly as the morning sun continued heating the valley floor. A thermal column was forming near the southern building that could potentially affect bullet trajectory during the middle portion of its flight path. Sarah noted the thermal activity but determined that the disruption was minimal enough to proceed with her planned engagement. General Basim moved fully into view at the southern building's window, apparently responding to some sound or disturbance that had caught his attention. His position provided an excellent shot opportunity, with clear line of sight and no intervening obstacles. The target appeared to be looking toward the northern building, possibly having heard something related to the first engagement. Sarah's breathing rhythm remained perfectly controlled despite the adrenaline surge that accompanies combat engagement. Her heart rate stayed low, a physiological response developed through years of high-stress training scenarios. The second shot required the same level of precision as the first, with no margin for error given the extreme distance and tactical situation. The wind gauge showed conditions holding steady at 8 miles per hour from the southwest, consistent with her calculated corrections. Atmospheric pressure remained stable, and the temperature had risen only slightly from her morning baseline measurements. All environmental factors supported proceeding with the second engagement without additional adjustments. Through her peripheral vision, Sarah could see Santos maintaining his observation of the eastern building where General Nazir remained positioned. The third target showed no immediate signs of alarm, continuing his document review activities without apparent awareness of the developing situation. This provided confidence that the acoustic signature of the first shot had not yet alerted all targets to the threat. The crosshairs settled on General Bassam's center mass, accounting for the calculated bullet drop and wind deflection over the 2,401-meter distance. Sarah's finger found the trigger's first stage, applying steady pressure while maintaining perfect sight alignment. The Barrett scope picture remained rock-steady despite the weapon's substantial weight and the shooter's elevated pulse rate. A brief gust of wind registered on her monitoring equipment, increasing to 11 miles per hour for approximately 5 seconds before returning to baseline conditions. Sarah waited for the gust to pass, understanding that patience remained more important than speed in ensuring accurate shot placement. The target remained in position, providing time for optimal atmospheric conditions to return. The wind settled back to 8 miles per hour as Sarah resumed her firing sequence. Her trigger finger applied increasing pressure to the second stage while her breathing reached the natural respiratory pause between inhalation and exhalation. The moment of perfect stability arrived as all variables aligned for the optimal shot opportunity. The second shot broke cleanly, the Barrett's action cycling smoothly to chamber a fresh round as Sarah immediately began transitioning to the eastern building. The sound of her second shot would reach the compound approximately 12 seconds after the first bullet's impact, providing additional tactical advantage through continued acoustic delay. Santos tracked the second bullet's trajectory while beginning his shift toward observing the third target. Second round fired, impact in 3 seconds, he reported through his headset to the command post while maintaining his spotting responsibilities. The bullet struck General Bassam with the same devastating precision as the first shot, eliminating the second target exactly as planned. The engagement was proceeding flawlessly, with both long-range shots achieving their intended results despite the extreme distances and challenging environmental conditions. Target Charlie down, Santos confirmed. Ghost transitioning to final target. Sarah's transition to the eastern building was smooth and efficient, her rifle settling into position for the third engagement. General Nazir remained visible through the window, still apparently unaware of the fate that had befallen his colleagues. The distance to this target measured 2,243 meters, falling between the ranges of her first 2 shots and requiring different ballistic corrections. The scope adjustments for the third target were completed quickly, with elevation settings between those used for the first 2 engagements. Wind conditions remained favorable, though Sarah noted that the thermal activity in the valley was beginning to increase as the sun climbed higher in the morning sky. As she settled her crosshairs on the third target, the sound of her second shot finally reached the compound. General Nazir's head turned toward the window, apparently responding to the distant gunshot. His movement was sudden but provided an even better shot angle, turning to present a full-profile view rather than the partial exposure she had been observing. The target's reaction confirmed that the acoustic signature of her shooting position was reaching the compound with sufficient delay to allow engagement of all 3 targets before they could effectively respond to the threat. This timing advantage had been critical to the mission's success, validating the careful selection of her firing position and the precision of her shooting sequence. Sarah's breathing rhythm remained controlled as she prepared for the third and final shot of the sequence. Her finger applied pressure to the trigger's first stage while her scope picture remained perfectly aligned on General Nazir's exposed position. Environmental conditions continued to support accurate shooting, with wind speeds holding steady and minimal thermal disruption along the bullet's flight path. The target appeared to be moving toward the eastern building's doorway, possibly intending to investigate the sounds he had heard or to seek better cover. Sarah recognized that her window of opportunity was narrowing, requiring immediate engagement to ensure successful completion of her mission objectives. The crosshairs tracked smoothly with the target's movement, maintaining perfect alignment as Sarah transitioned from breathing control to trigger activation. Years of training in engaging moving targets at extended ranges had prepared her for exactly this type of dynamic shooting scenario. General Nazir paused at the window, apparently scanning the surrounding terrain in an attempt to identify the source of the gunshots he had heard. His momentary stillness provided the optimal opportunity for engagement, with clear line of sight and minimal target movement to complicate the ballistic solution. Sarah's trigger finger completed its rearward movement, releasing the third shot in the sequence with the same precision that had characterized the previous two engagements. The Barrett's action cycled smoothly as the rifle prepared for potential follow-up shots, though Sarah's confidence in her shooting indicated that additional rounds would not be necessary. The bullet's flight time to the eastern target would be approximately 2.8 seconds based on the distance and atmospheric conditions. Sarah maintained her scope picture on the target area while beginning to assess the overall tactical situation in the compound. Her mission was nearly complete, with only the final bullet impact remaining to confirm total success. Santos continued his observation duties, tracking the third bullet while monitoring the compound for any additional threats or complications. The engagement had proceeded exactly according to plan, with all three high-value targets eliminated in rapid succession before any effective response could be mounted. At 2.8 seconds after the third trigger pull, General Nasir was eliminated with the same devastating effectiveness as his colleagues. The impossible shot sequence was complete, proving that precision, patience, and exceptional skill could overcome even the most challenging tactical scenarios. The compound fell silent except for the distant echo of the final gunshot reverberating through the mountain valley. Sarah Martinez had accomplished something that military historians would later describe as one of the most remarkable feats of precision shooting in modern warfare. 3 targets, 3 different distances exceeding 2 miles, 3 perfect shots delivered in rapid succession under combat conditions. The mission that Commander Peterson had declared impossible was now complete. The enemy leadership structure in Kunar province had been eliminated in less than 15 seconds of actual engagement time, validating years of training, preparation, and unwavering dedication to excellence under pressure. The immediate aftermath of the engagement brought a deceptive calm to the mountain ridge where Sarah maintained her position. Through her scope, she could observe increasing activity in the compound below as personnel began responding to the sudden elimination of their leadership. Figures moved rapidly between buildings, some seeking cover while others appeared to be conducting hasty searches for the source of the attack. Sarah kept her rifle trained on the compound while Santos continued his observation duties through the spotting scope. Both operators understood that their mission was far from complete despite the successful elimination of the 3 primary targets. The tactical situation required careful assessment to ensure safe extraction without compromising their position or alerting additional enemy forces to their presence. "Command, this is Ghost," Sarah reported through her encrypted radio. "All 3 targets eliminated. Compound showing increased activity but no immediate threat to our position." Commander Peterson's response came quickly, his voice carrying a mixture of amazement and professional satisfaction. "Outstanding work, Ghost. Maintain overwatch for 15 minutes while we coordinate extraction. Intelligence wants confirmation of no additional high-value personnel in the area." The 15-minute observation period allowed Sarah to study the compound's response to the attack in detail. The remaining personnel appeared to be mid-level commanders and support staff who lacked the authority or knowledge to effectively organize a coherent response. Their movements seemed panicked and uncoordinated, suggesting that the elimination of the 3 generals had indeed created significant disruption in the local command structure. Santos identified several individuals who warranted continued observation, including 2 men in military-style clothing who appeared to be attempting to establish communications with higher headquarters. Their activities were consistent with intelligence assessments that the eliminated targets had been the primary decision-makers for the region, leaving their subordinates without clear direction or authority. The atmospheric conditions that had favored the long-range engagement began shifting as the morning sun continued heating the valley floor. Thermal columns became more pronounced, creating visible distortion effects that would have complicated additional shooting if required. Sarah noted these changes while maintaining her defensive position, ready to engage any immediate threats to the mission. Her ammunition count showed 9 rounds remaining in the Barrett's magazine, more than sufficient for any likely engagement scenarios during the extraction phase. The weapon had performed flawlessly throughout the operation, with each shot firing precisely as intended without any mechanical issues or unexpected ballistic variations. The radio crackled with updates from various elements involved in the operation. Intelligence analysts at the command post were monitoring communications intercepts from the compound, confirming that the targeted individuals had indeed been eliminated and that remaining personnel were requesting guidance from higher authority. "Ghost, Intel confirms complete mission success," came the report from the command post. "Intercepts indicate the targets were carrying critical planning documents that are now secured by our ground elements. The planned offensive operations have been effectively disrupted. Sarah felt a deep sense of professional satisfaction at this confirmation. The mission had achieved its primary objectives while preventing the loss of American and Allied lives that would have resulted from the planned enemy operations. The precision and timing of her shots had ensured that critical intelligence materials were captured rather than destroyed in a defensive response. As the observation period continued, Sarah reflected on the technical aspects of the engagement that had contributed to its success. The careful selection of her firing position had provided optimal angles and distances to all three targets while offering concealment and fields of fire necessary for safe extraction. The environmental monitoring and ballistic calculations had been precise enough to achieve first-round hits at distances that pushed the absolute limits of her equipment's capabilities. The Barrett M107A1 rifle system had performed exactly as designed, delivering the accuracy and reliability essential for extreme long-range precision shooting. The Federal premium ammunition had provided the consistency necessary for predictable ballistic performance across the varying distances to the three targets. Every component of her equipment had functioned perfectly when lives and mission success depended on absolute reliability. Santos maintained his vigilant observation while providing continuous updates on compound activity. Ghost, I'm seeing what appears to be preparation for evacuation in the eastern building. Multiple individuals loading vehicles with documents and equipment. The intelligence value of observing the enemy's response patterns would prove significant for future operations in the region. Sarah documented the locations where personnel sought cover, the communication methods they employed, and the apparent chain of command among the surviving staff. This information would help intelligence analysts better understand the organization's structure and likely responses to similar operations. Commander Peterson's voice returned to their radio frequency with extraction instructions. Ghost, Viper flight is inbound for pickup. Recommend moving to extraction point Alpha in 10 minutes. Great work on an impossible mission. The extraction point lay approximately 800 meters from their current position, requiring careful movement across exposed terrain while maintaining security against potential enemy response. Sarah began preparing her equipment for movement, ensuring that the Barrett rifle was properly secured and that all sensitive materials were accounted for. The egress route had been carefully planned to avoid likely enemy observation points while providing multiple options if the primary path became compromised. Sarah and Santos would move separately but in coordination, with one operator providing overwatch while the other moved, then reversing roles to continue the movement sequence. Sarah took one final look through her scope at the compound below, noting that activity continued to increase as more personnel arrived from surrounding positions. The rapid response suggested that the eliminated targets had indeed been critical to regional operations, validating the intelligence assessment that had led to the mission. The weight of her equipment felt familiar and manageable as Sarah prepared for movement. The Barrett rifle, despite its substantial mass, had been specifically designed for portability in tactical situations. Her total load, including ammunition, optics, and supporting equipment, remained within acceptable limits for the planned extraction movement. Santos completed his own preparation routine, securing his spotting equipment and conducting a final check of their position to ensure no sensitive materials were left behind. Both operators understood that evidence of their capabilities and methods must not fall into enemy hands, requiring careful attention to operational security throughout the extraction process. The sound of approaching helicopters became audible from the north, indicating that the extraction flight was proceeding according to schedule. Sarah checked her chronometer, confirming that timing remained optimal for movement to the pickup point. The coordination between ground and air elements reflected the careful planning that had characterized every aspect of the operation. Ghost, this is Viper Lead, came the voice of the extraction flight leader. We have your position marked and are proceeding to extraction point Alpha. Recommend you begin movement now. Sarah and Santos began their carefully choreographed movement toward the pickup point, with Santos taking the lead position while Sarah provided overwatch with the Barrett rifle. Their movement was smooth and professional, utilizing available cover while maintaining the security procedures essential for safe extraction from hostile territory. The extraction point consisted of a small clearing surrounded by rocky outcroppings that provided both concealment and defensive positions if required. The area had been selected specifically for its helicopter landing capabilities while offering multiple escape routes if the pickup became compromised. As they reached the extraction point, Sarah could see the distinctive silhouette of the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters approaching from the north. The aircraft flew in a tactical formation designed to provide mutual support while minimizing exposure to potential ground threats. The sight of the approaching helicopters represented the successful completion of one of the most challenging missions in her career. The lead helicopter settled into the landing zone with practiced precision while the second aircraft maintained overwatch from a covering position nearby. Sarah and Santos moved quickly toward the aircraft, maintaining security awareness despite the apparent absence of immediate threats. The helicopter crew chief guided them aboard with efficient hand signals, ensuring that their equipment was properly secured for flight. Sarah settled into the canvas seat while maintaining her grip on the Barrett rifle, the weapon that had made the impossible possible through precision, preparation, and unwavering dedication to excellence. As the helicopter lifted off from the mountainous terrain of Afghanistan, Sarah looked back toward the compound where 3 enemy commanders would no longer threaten American and Allied forces. The mission that had begun with Commander Peterson's assessment that the shots were impossible had concluded with a demonstration that the right combination of skill, equipment, and determination could overcome even the most daunting challenges. The flight back to base provided time for initial mission debriefing with Santos and the extraction team. The tactical lessons learned from the operation would be incorporated into future training and mission planning, helping to ensure that other operators could benefit from the techniques and procedures that had proven successful under combat conditions. Intelligence analysts would spend weeks studying the information gathered during the mission, both from direct observation and from materials captured in the compound. The elimination of the 3 high-value targets would significantly disrupt enemy operations throughout the region, potentially saving hundreds of lives and protecting critical supply routes essential for ongoing operations. Sarah Martinez had proven that the impossible was merely another word for improbable when confronted with exceptional skill, meticulous preparation, and unwavering determination. The legend of Ghost and her impossible shots would become part of military lore, inspiring future generations of precision marksmen while serving as a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of America's elite warriors. The debriefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman was unusually quiet as senior officers and intelligence analysts gathered to hear the complete account of what would later be classified as one of the most remarkable precision shooting achievements in military history. Sarah sat at the conference table, her Barrett rifle properly secured in the adjacent armory after thorough inspection and documentation of its performance during the mission. Commander Peterson opened the formal debriefing session with an acknowledgement that few present had believed possible just hours earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, what we witnessed today challenges our understanding of what's tactically feasible in long-range precision operations. Lieutenant Martinez has accomplished something that will be studied and discussed for decades to come. The detailed mission analysis revealed the extraordinary precision of Sarah's shooting performance. All 3 shots had struck within inches of their calculated impact points despite distances exceeding 2 miles and varying environmental conditions. The first shot at 2,187 meters had achieved a perfect center mass hit. The second shot at 2,401 meters had eliminated its target with equal precision despite the increased distance and changing thermal conditions. The third shot at 2,243 meters had completed the sequence with devastating effectiveness. Major Rebecca Hayes, the intelligence officer who had developed the target package, presented her assessment of the mission's strategic impact. The elimination of these 3 commanders has effectively paralyzed enemy operations throughout Kunar province. Intercepts indicate that planned attacks against supply convoys have been cancelled indefinitely while remaining leadership attempts to reorganize their command structure. The captured documents from the compound provided unprecedented insight into enemy operational planning and organizational structure. Intelligence analysts discovered detailed attack plans that would have targeted American and Afghan government forces throughout the region, potentially resulting in dozens of casualties and significant strategic setbacks. Captain Michael Torres, the battalion's operations officer, highlighted the tactical innovations that had made the mission possible. The combination of advanced ballistic calculation, environmental monitoring, and exceptional marksmanship created a new paradigm for long-range precision operations. This mission will influence training and equipment development for years to come. Sarah's own after-action report focused on the technical aspects of the engagement, providing detailed analysis of the equipment performance, environmental factors, and shooting techniques that had contributed to the mission's success. Her documentation would become required reading at sniper schools and precision shooting courses throughout the military. The Barrett M107A1 rifle system had performed flawlessly throughout the operation, with no mechanical issues or unexpected ballistic variations. Each shot had fired exactly as calculated, validating the weapon's design and the effectiveness of the federal premium ammunition selected for the mission. The Nightforce scope had provided crystal-clear target identification and precise aiming references essential for accurate shot placement. Environmental monitoring equipment had proven critical to the mission's success, providing real-time data on wind conditions, atmospheric pressure, temperature, and thermal effects that influenced bullet trajectory. The handheld weather station and thermal imaging system had delivered the accuracy necessary for precise ballistic calculations under rapidly changing conditions. Santos received recognition for his exceptional performance as a spotter, providing accurate target identification, environmental assessment, and tactical guidance throughout the engagement. His observation skills and communication had been essential to maintaining situational awareness and ensuring safe mission execution. The mission's success validated years of training and preparation that had transformed Sarah from a physics student in Montana into one of the world's most capable precision marksmen. The shooting techniques developed through thousands of practice rounds, combined with her technical understanding of ballistics and environmental factors, had created the capability to achieve seemingly impossible results under combat conditions. Commander Peterson formally acknowledged what he had initially deemed impossible. "I was wrong about this mission's feasibility, and I've never been happier to admit an error in judgment." Lieutenant Martinez has redefined what we consider possible in precision shooting operations. The strategic implications of the mission extended far beyond the immediate tactical success. Intelligence agencies began reassessing their understanding of precision engagement capabilities, leading to increased investment in advanced sniper training and equipment development. The techniques and procedures validated during the operation became standard curriculum at advanced marksmanship schools. Sarah's achievement earned recognition at the highest levels of military leadership, though operational security requirements limited public acknowledgement of the specific details. The mission remained classified to protect sources and methods while ensuring that similar operations could be conducted without alerting potential targets to evolving capabilities. The psychological impact on enemy forces proved as significant as the tactical results. Intelligence reports indicated that senior commanders throughout the region began altering their movement patterns and security procedures, becoming increasingly cautious about exposure to potential sniper observation. This behavioral change reduced their operational effectiveness and complicated their planning processes. Training programs began incorporating lessons learned from the mission, with particular emphasis on environmental monitoring, ballistic calculation, and psychological preparation for extreme-range engagements. The integration of advanced technology with exceptional human skill became a model for developing future precision shooting capabilities. The Barrett Firearms Company requested detailed feedback on the rifle's performance, using the information to refine their manufacturing processes and quality control procedures. The Federal Premium Ammunition Manufacturer similarly analyzed the ballistic data to improve their match-grade production standards for military applications. Sarah's technical expertise led to her assignment as an instructor at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, where she would train the next generation of precision marksmen in the advanced techniques that had proven successful under combat conditions. Her teaching methodology emphasized the integration of technical knowledge with practical shooting skills. The mission video, captured by reconnaissance drones, became classified training material studied by special operations personnel worldwide. The footage provided unprecedented insight into the execution of extreme-range precision shooting under actual combat conditions, serving as the definitive example of what was possible with proper preparation and execution. Years later, military historians would rank the engagement among the most significant precision shooting achievements in warfare history. The combination of extreme distance, multiple targets, time constraints, and perfect execution created a tactical milestone that influenced military doctrine and training throughout the special operations community. Sarah's callsign Ghost became legendary within the special operations community, representing the pinnacle of precision shooting achievement. New sniper candidates learned her techniques and studied her methods, aspiring to achieve similar levels of excellence under pressure. The 3 Taliban commanders eliminated in the engagement had been responsible for planning attacks that could have killed or wounded hundreds of American and Allied personnel. Their removal from the battlefield prevented these operations and significantly disrupted enemy capabilities throughout the region, saving countless lives and protecting critical military assets. The impossible shot had become a reality through the convergence of exceptional human skill, advanced technology, meticulous preparation, and unwavering determination. Sarah Martinez had proven that the limits of human achievement are often defined more by imagination than by physics, and that with sufficient dedication and expertise, even the most challenging objectives can become attainable. As the debriefing concluded, Commander Peterson offered his final assessment of the historic mission. What we accomplished today will be remembered as the moment when impossible became possible. Lieutenant Martinez has set a new standard for precision, professionalism, and performance under pressure that will inspire warriors for generations to come. The legend of the impossible shot would endure, serving as proof that American Special Operations personnel possess the skill, courage, and determination to accomplish missions that others consider beyond the realm of possibility. In the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan, Sara Martinez had written her name into military history with 3 perfect shots that redefined the boundaries of human achievement under combat conditions. The Barrett rifle that had delivered those historic shots was eventually retired to the Military History Museum, where it serves as a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of America's elite warriors and the precision instruments they wield in defense of freedom and democracy around the world.